Hi, my name's Ed and welcome to my YouTube channel. I make, modify and mend things, mostly from the workshop behind me. So let's go inside and check out some of my current projects. So this is one of my currently active projects, I guess you could call it. It's a Toyota Town Ace van and I went halves with a friend on this. It cost us the grand total of £160, so 80 quid each. We bought this in 2018, I think, 2018 or 2019, with the intention of using it as like a road trip bus. So we bought this blind from Western Supermare and it was so tatty. It used to be black and it was completely rotten in some places. I mean, the door bottoms are still really bad, but especially around the wheel arches and the windows, like the window sills, they were all completely rotten. So I spent most of lockdown in 2020. Yeah, that's how long my projects take. Welding it up, and then more recently I've been painting it. I sprayed this with Rust-Oleum. So yeah, it looks okay on camera. It's not actually brilliant, but it's miles better than it was. So that's cool. And the interior is really funky as well. So it's got 2 rows of seats in the back. And as you can see, this first row completely spins around. That rotates. And it faces the back seats. So you can have kind of a conference in the back of your van. So that's really cool. I've also got this wood burner that I made out of an old gas cylinder. It used to be one of those orange gas cylinders that you see everywhere. They used to always be dumped in the hedgerows, and that's what kind of inspired me to do this. They were just lying in the hedge and in the ditches all around where I live. So I thought there must be something you can do with these. So I made this wood burner out of it. And to be fair, this is actually basically finished. I made this years ago actually, and it never worked that well. And so more recently I modified it. I put a much better catch on the door. I actually welded this lip on because how I had it before, just both edges were like this and they didn't even line up. So I put this big lip on so that there's a big sealing surface. I put a rope seal on there. I also put a big baffle inside because when I did use it before, flames just went straight up the chimney and all the heat and the flames just went straight up. So I put this baffle in so the heat has to come around the front and then travel to the back again to get up to the chimney. So that should make it radiate heat better. I also made air vents in the door. So it's got sort of like some air control. And to be fair, this is almost finished. I got that far and then I started painting it and I ran out of heat-proof paint. So all I need to do is basically paint that and it's done. This is one of my favourite vehicles actually. I part own this with my brother. We went halves on it years ago. I think we bought this in, I want to say 2007 or 2008. We paid £250 for it on eBay. We bought it blind, went and picked it up and towed it home on a 6-foot-long piece of rope behind my friend's car. So we've owned this van a long time. It was really rusty. We welded the whole thing up and now it's decent. We painted it as well. It used to be kind of a maroon colour and we painted it in Rust-Oleum. This was the first vehicle I ever painted. We just did it with rollers and we didn't bother flattening it back or anything. So, I mean, at the moment it's really dusty, but the paint is really rough, but it's protected and that's what's important. This is actually part way through a Subaru engine conversion. And if you look back on my channel, you'll see some videos on this. We have done all the mechanical things and now we're just onto the wiring. And that's kind of why it's kind of been mothballed, because it's way over our heads. So this is the current state of the wiring in the V-dub. And unless you're super comfortable with electronics, this probably looks super daunting. And that's exactly what it is to me. Now I have all the wiring diagrams for this. And when we weeded out, this is the entire car loom from the donor Subaru. And when we first took it out, it was about 5 times bigger than this, and there was about 5 times more cables. Now, I went through every single wiring diagram for the car and removed every circuit that we don't need. And this should be everything we need to make it work, the Subaru engine work in the van. But like I said, there's still a lot of wiring work to do on this, and that's kind of where we're at with it. This is a project that I've kind of been doing in between other projects. So if I'm waiting for glue to dry or paint to dry or something, then I've just been tickling away at this. I was collecting loads of pallets because I wanted to practice woodwork. So I collected loads of pallets and took them to pieces, and that's what you see here. And I just thought I'll make a table, a little coffee table to practice. So I did make a couple of those, and then I decided to make another one with kind of funky shaped legs, and I wanted to make the table top a bit nicer, so I've actually mitered the edge. But yeah, this is something that's been ongoing for several months. Whenever I get 5 or 10 minutes, I'll just tickle away at this. I think current status with this is I've filled some like holes on the top. I just need to sand this back and then I can put a finish on it. To be fair, this is almost finished. This is a Mark I Austin Metro. My first car was a Metro, and it wasn't one of these, it was a Rover Metro, which is one of the later ones. But I always wanted a Mark I. I thought they looked really cool with those recessed headlights. And I found this one for sale for £500, fairly near me, and it was owned by a 91-year-old lady who had owned it from new, and she'd only done 9,000 miles in it. The only reason she was selling it is because her family wanted her to stop driving. And as we loaded it onto the truck when I bought it, she cried. And she said, "Please promise me you're not going to sell this for money." And I wasn't going to anyway, but obviously I've still got it. I love it. It's not run for many years. I put this away when I was a student because I couldn't afford to run it. And I've not used it since. Now it did actually stall. When I first backed it into here, it stalled and it wouldn't restart. So I don't know if there's something wrong with it. It's got electronic ignition, which I fitted because I was fed up of adjusting the points gap all the time. I did use it for commuting at one point. I think it's got about 25,000 miles on the clock now. So I did put about 15,000 on the clock. But yeah, really cool car. I do keep this one covered because I don't want that paint to get damaged. So I do keep this covered. But yeah, I love this car. And it's something that I would like to get running again. Even if I can't afford to put it on the road, I'd like to just get it running and driving. I also have these, which, oh, they're a bit dusty. So these are currently bicycle brake lever extensions. Now, I never actually found out what these were for specifically. Some people told me they were like disability levers for people, for like accessible bikes. Someone else told me that they were when you've got like handlebar extensions or like bull horns or something like that on your bike. So you can pull the brakes even with those funky like bar extensions on the end of your bars. I use them and I modify these to make unicycle brake levers. Now I'm a unicyclist and I'm a unicycle coach, and you have disc brakes on unicycles, especially off-road unicycles, but the position of the brake lever makes it really hard to pull if you use a conventional brake lever. You can modify these and it makes the brake lever way easier to pull, but they're way too long as standard. So I cut these down and then re-anodize them into different colors because they only come in this blue, and you can get silver ones, I think, as well. And if you're anyone in the unicycle scene, then you have to have a color-coded unicycle, obviously. So I cut these down, smooth them off again, and re-anodize them. So this is a batch that I've been meaning to do for ages. I just haven't got around to it. So that's another project. I also own this Vespa moped, which is very cool. I bought this a few years ago. I was doing it up for my friend, and then she decided to sell it, and I liked it so much. I was like, do you know what? I would love it. So it used to be a 50cc originally. It's now got a 112cc kit on it, I think. Now this thing's a two-stroke, and I know nothing about two-strokes really. I completely rebuilt the engine. I had it down to its component parts. It had all new bearings, all new seals, and then I built it back up. So it was effectively a brand new engine other than the casings. Like I said, it's got a bigger cylinder kit on it. So it had a brand new head and cylinder and piston. I had to put a bigger carb on there as well. And it goes really well, but I have loads of problem with fueling on it, and I'm pretty sure it's because of the bigger carb. I don't think I've ever had the jetting right on it. And yeah, I always have fuel problems with it, and it's probably the most unreliable vehicle I own. I was riding it, it was running and riding it maybe a year and a half ago, 2 years ago-ish, but it's never run well for very long. But again, that's something I'd like to get going again, because it's really cool and it's really nice on a summer's day to go out riding on this. So it's quite dark down here, so this one might be a little bit difficult to see. Like I said, my first car was an Austin Metro, and so when I was younger, I was a huge Metro geek. And I managed to track down and acquire this MG Metro Turbo. This is a Mark II Turbo, and this was my dream car at the time. And I managed to track down a guy who had one. I think he had mentioned he had one on a forum once, and he mentioned that it might be for sale, and I contacted him, and he actually ended up giving it to me in the end. And I feel so bad because of the state it's in. So I got this with the intention of restoring it, and I was just a naive kid at the time, and I had no idea what I was getting myself in for, and it was completely rotten. The engine it wasn't seized, it did turn over, but it was completely gummed up with stale fuel. It had a carburetor on it, and I had no idea what I was doing with carbs at the time. So when I first got this workshop, I rolled this in, took the engine out, took all the doors and windows out. I realised how deep I was into something that I knew nothing about. And so that's kind of the state where it stayed. So this is a complete car, even though it looks like it's covered in junk. The interior is inside. All the doors and the bonnet and the boot are over at the back. I have the engine in storage at the bottom of my racking. So everything is there to complete the car. I believe this is what you call a mothballed project. Maybe it'll be my retirement project, but I think a lot of people would give up on something like this. I really don't want to. It's a Mark II Turbo. They're super rare, and I've got a complete car here. So one day I will have the skills to be able to do this thing justice. Oh yeah, and I've also got this 43-foot narrowboat. I do normally live on this, but at the moment I'm renovating the inside. So it used to be super dark and depressing in here. It was all really dark wood, and it was kind of, yeah, dingy and claustrophobic. And it was also a bit old and dilapidated. So the boat was built in 1980, and I don't think the interior had ever been changed. So yeah, it was a little bit dated, and so I completely gutted it back to the bare hull and started again. It's got proper insulation in. I've run proper cables because it just had old, like, house domestic style cabling. So it's got all proper cabling in now. I put this cladding up, and I've done kind of like a light wash, so it's much brighter. It's got new LED lights. I've got touch dimmer switches, and I've got two 30 volts USB-C and A and a 12-volt socket all the way down the boat in many locations, both sides. So yeah, it should be much lighter, more airy and spacious when it's done. But obviously this is taking up a lot of my time at the moment. So a lot of my other projects are sort of on hold while I do this. So there's a brief tour of a lot of my projects that I've got on at the moment. As you can tell, I'm really good at starting projects, not so great at finishing them. And I'm hoping that this channel will kind of spur me on to actually finish some projects before I start new ones. It's also a little bit of a peek inside my workshop. It's pretty messy at the moment because of the boat. One of the other projects that I've got sort of on the horizon in my mind is a complete rearrange of this place. Like I said, there's loads of stuff in here at the moment. And actually, I did rearrange it. I built this workbench last year. And I had a lot of my tools around the old workbench. And I kind of left them there, and then I got some shelving, and it's all got a little bit split up. So it's something that I would like to do, completely reorganize this place and rearrange stuff. So that's another one that's on the horizon, but I'm not going to start that one yet. That's for when I've finished a few of the existing ones. So thanks for hanging out with me today. Thanks for taking a look around at some of my projects. And if you want to see some of these projects progress, then please subscribe, and that'll spur me on to get some of these finished. Until then, see you in the next one.